How many pages is your communications plan? Hey there, this is Matthew Jennings, and on this edition of Peachjar Extra Credit, I am very excited to have Christine Peck back on the show for a second time. Woo-hoo. So if you have not dug into creating a strategic communications plan for your department, stick around because we are going to talk through all the details that you'll need to know to work through that process yourself. Christine, thank you so much for joining me again. This is awesome to have you on the channel for round two. Our first video together was a video on the hiring initiatives that Poway Unified has been engaged in over the last couple of years. That was amazing. We've had a lot of positive feedback on that.
Awesome.
I've had human resources directors reach out, other superintendents reach out. I watched it. We took some of the strategies. It was a great video. So thank you so much for taking the time to do another one. Ever since then, I've just been trying to figure out, what am I going to get Christine back on for? And this one just is a natural for you. If you would take just a moment, tell us a little bit about yourself, your district, and what your role is there.
Hey everyone, I'm Christine Peck. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for the Poway Unified School District. The Poway Unified School District is located in beautiful San Diego, California, and our district is TK through 12 plus adult school, and we have about 35,000 students and 5,000 staff members.
That's great. Yeah, fantastic district, great reputation. I follow a lot of the channels that you have, your social media feeds. I check out websites. I just find that what you and your team are accomplishing over there is really polished, really well done. In that vein, communications plan. Your communications plan is one of the best that I've gotten to see, and I've gotten to judge some plans before, but I just really love it. I think it's extremely well done, very well thought out. I know that you put a lot of effort into it every year, making sure it's right, accurate, updated. So I'd love to talk through that today. If you would just kind of give us a high-level overview of what a communications plan is, and maybe why, if someone doesn't have one, why they want to go through the effort, time, and energy, because I know it's a big lift to create one.
I think the communications plan for our department in Poway Unified really started with a few years back. I found that we were preparing kind of a report to the board to share all the things that the communications department had been doing or had been up to. And I actually kind of amazed myself. You know, it doesn't sound very humble, but I really was shocked. I was like, wow, we've done all these things, but how do we measure that in terms of success? And so this kind of coincided with the fact that I was thinking about getting my APR, accreditation in public relations. And so if anyone's gone through the APR process or is thinking of going through the APR process, it really switches your mindset into being very strategic in your approach to comms. And so we all know the 4 steps: research, planning, implementation, and evaluation. And I realized I wasn't doing that. And as a result, the day-to-day, it was just doing them for the sake of doing them and guided by my gut, which I thought, okay, this is right. But really, we needed to approach it in a different strategic way. And that's how the communications plan was born.
So that's a really good why. And you mentioned, you touched on something that's a little unrelated to communications planning that I just want to go back on for just a minute, because you had said when you look back at the year, you were surprised at the work that your office was engaged in. I often felt that way too. And if you're not tracking your work and projects along the way, I highly encourage you, start a Google Doc. When you complete big ticket items, even I would go back and link all my press releases that we wrote, staff hirings, link back out to those, because that's all work that your team's engaged in, that you're putting out there in the world to help your marketing and branding efforts and more. And at the end of the year, keeping that tally, I think will be very impressive if you aren't doing that now.
You know, our fellow educators in our district offices, they love data.
Yes,
and so communications, if you're able to provide data as to how you have impacted the district in measurable ways, that's priceless.
Which that data and that why and the how is a big cornerstone of your communication plan, which I know we're going to get to, which I'm excited about. So great point. Let's talk about then what are some of the elements in your communications plan?
I think every person who makes a communications plan has to be guided by the larger district vision and mission. And so if you're looking at starting out, you look at that. What are you serving, basically? What is your comms plan trying to accomplish, big picture? So then once you have your district vision and mission in mind, then you get a little bit smaller. So for California school districts, we have something called the LCAP, Local Control Accountability Plan, and our funding from the state is directly tied to that plan. One of the main goals in the LCAP is student and family engagement, as well as community engagement. Communications falls right under that. And so everything we need to do, and the reason why we exist, is under that goal. So that's kind of large picture. Under our communications plan, once we know what the larger goals are for the district, then the communications plan itself has 4 goals. And so that includes elevate the brand and image of our school district, provide excellent customer service, create engagement and partnerships with our students, staff, and community, as well as provide excellence, training, and support in all things communications. Every single thing we do in our office can fit under one of those 4 goals. And so that's really important because remember I talked about that haphazard feeling where you're doing a lot, but you're not sure what is the strategy, what's the end goal. Now, it not only gives you guidance of what you should do, it also shows you what you shouldn't do. And the things that are off track and don't fit under the plan, you should be saying no to. And that actually gives you, as a strategic communicator, license to say, this doesn't fit under our plan, or no, not this time.
And maybe it does in the future. Yep, absolutely. We'll consider that and see where that fits in. And we're always looking at our plan, those kind of things. But yeah, that's a great point. Oftentimes, projects, ideas, thoughts come across our desk. And it is really great to lean back because you know what? The superintendent, executive cabinet, the board does that with board priorities. They'll look back and does this fit what we're trying? Is this a priority for what we've set forward for this year right here and right now? And so it just makes sense that we follow that model.
Absolutely.
So that's awesome. Let's talk about the next steps then of actually developing a communications plan. Can you talk me through what that looks like a little bit?
Really, it is fleshed out in an all-day communications department retreat. We as communicators spend so much time supporting others that we don't take the time to look at ourselves and take that step back and allow us that space to really reflect and say, what's working? What's not? What are we good at? What do we need help with? All of those things, from a SWOT analysis to looking at data and research to brainstorming ideas, we take the time and set aside a day in July when schools are not in session, a full day to go through all those steps and to really look at the plan and look forward as well as reflect backwards. That's
a big lift, but I can already tell pays huge dividends throughout the rest of the year. So you talked about just identifying like groups that you're going to need to meet with to help develop that plan. You talked about, letting like LCAP or, board priorities kind of guide that process. What about like communications channels? How do you account for those in your plan?
That's part of the analysis. So when we're looking at strategies and tactics, we're taking kind of a little mini audit. What are our communications channels that currently exist? Who are they reaching? Are there ones that we need to keep, drop, or start? And so I just have to give a little shout out to our communications specialist, Brittany Arnett. She's not in this video, but she's off to the side being like super cool and supportive. But Brittany is 100% involved in this process as well. And she comes up with like really that, frontline feedback, like, hey, I noticed this did really well, or hey, this is not working. I think we can let this go. And so really having that look, and again, back to data, whether it's insights or analytics on social media, web page visits,
Yeah.
how many recipients to your mass notifications, all those things come into play and should at least be looked at annually.
Yes. So one of the things that you mentioned was really tracking the data earlier. And so analytics, data, guiding this communications plan. I know that you're likely doing this. I've talked to a lot of other PIOs. I followed a similar process that followed this process. And it's making sure you're collecting that data on a weekly basis from like your social media feeds, those posts, what's going really well. If you can do that weekly, that's really great. Website visits, when you're putting things out, really try to track that in real time, because then you can go back and create a weekly report or a monthly report as necessary if superintendent or board requests it, and you already have that data. And again, you're going to want to track that because you're going to want that at the end of the year too, in culminating data like we just talked about earlier, just tracking all those projects you're doing. So do you have an actual piece? I kind of know the answer already because I love your plan, but do you have a component in the plan that really digs in a little deeper to data and ensuring that we're tracking data and maybe how and why?
Absolutely. So there's a couple ways we measure our success and progress. So for every goal, there are measurable objectives. For example, based on the CHICS survey, which is California Healthy Kids. And so under that survey, which is every other year, they measure things like, does my school communicate? Am I feeling like the school engages me and my student? So there's some very communication specific data that we can pull from there.
That's great.
We also have our annual LCAP survey to our community. And so that data we can use. So every goal has objectives tied to it, but also we're constantly looking at our communications platforms and looking at, how many news stories, of those news stories, how many of them were positive, knowing that communications had a role in that. Out of our communications that we've sent through our mass notification system, what's the receive rate? What's the open rate? Peachjar flyers, you name it. We are looking at that and constantly need to keep a finger on that pulse because, again, we're looking at that and is it effective for what we're trying to accomplish? And
it really also helps validate at the end of the year the role that the communications department plays in the overall mission and success of the district. And it is critical. It can also play a huge role in adding additional staff to the team, as the board sees, the executive cabinet sees the significant impact that you're having on things, which is great too. And I've had that personal experience. Boards come back and just said, make more Matthews. Whatever they're doing, that's working well, right? So tracking this is critical. And so if you're not leaning into that data and you're not tracking it, I can encourage you more strongly. And you've just heard Christine speak to how that's even a piece of the communication strategy and the plan that they use.
I love that. That's like the ultimate compliment, right? I wish we had more of you,
Yes.
I think also some of this might be really intimidating for people who've never done a strategic comms plan before. What I always say is, okay, so why don't you just start with a strategic comms plan for one project you're doing, right? So it doesn't have to be for your whole department and for the whole year. It can be for just one project and start small and say, hey, I'm doing a back to school enrollment campaign. How am I going to measure that, right? By the number of kids who, sign up through this link or whatever.
Yes.
And here are the ways that I'm going to do that. And that in and of itself really gets you comfortable with that strategic comms planning. It doesn't have to be fancy.
It doesn't. Yours happens to be quite nice and fancy.
It's a little fancy.
So I wanted to ask, that's funny. You segued perfectly into my next question. And you're right, leaning into something smaller, like I did a smaller strategic plan around a logo redesign or a renaming of a school facility. That's a really great way to do something smaller. And in fact, if you have a larger strategic communications plan, you probably still need to go through that effort and that work anyway if you're doing something more high level with a lot of visibility there. Creating a communications plan for that, really just setting that roadmap makes it so much easier to go through the process. So I have a couple questions about your plan specifically. Do you have it posted online?
Yes, it's online at powayusd.com and just click on the communications department and it's right there on our page.
Awesome. We will link to that in the description, so it'll be really easy for you to find. How many pages is your communications plan?
It's long only because it's long only because we included some extra like appendices, like
Yes.
crisis comms, different samples and things like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be that long. But I do think it's about 50 to 60 pages.
It is.
But yours does not need to be that long. I promise you.
This is why I bring this up, because if you click that link in the description and you flip through that communications plan, you might feel a little overwhelmed at first. But what I find really amazing about that is because one, a board or an executive cabinet receiving a plan like that shows the amount of effort, the thought that went into it, and that there's a really clear direction that and a I don't know, just a mission that your department is going to serve. Like, I really feel like if I was in a leadership position and I received your plan, my first reaction would be, wow. And I'd feel very confident that I could probably just turn you loose for the rest of the year and magic would happen. So if you look at it and feel a little overwhelmed, it's really not that bad. I mean, there's pages in there that have like you and Brittany's bios on there, a little background on you. That's an easy filler page, but critical. You have a board member reading this plan, put your face out there. Put a little bit about you, what your title is. Like, you may assume that they know more about your apartment than they really do. If they've got somebody out in the public that's downloading that plan, they're going to see additional items about your district. You have some things in there just about Poway Unified in general and the community that you serve. So there are some pages in there that are actually probably already web pages on your website that you could duplicate really easily in the plan. And it's not filler. We're not doing it just to make it bigger and more wow. I believe they are really good just pieces of information to have in there.
And that's what I was just going to say, is that you probably already have a lot of the content. And so Canva is your best friend, which is what our plan is made on. And find a template. Canva has annual report type templates that you can plug in your content, and it's beautiful, right?
Yeah, it really
and
is.
so for us, even though we review it every year, it's a 3-year plan. And so we won't be really looking at it until probably next year.
Okay, that makes sense. And if you're using Canva, go ahead and just plug into that AI there and ask it to design that for you. I don't know have you used the little left turn here, but have you used the AI functionality to have Canva design anything for you yet?
I have not.
Oh, it is. That's Brittany that you're hearing off to the side.
Brittany says it's weird.
Brittany says it's weird. It is pretty interesting. You know, I was talking to a member on our team here at Peachjar, and I went in there and I said, let me show you something. And I said, please create a demo, 14 slide demo on why a school district should choose to use Peachjar. And it pulled in our brands, our colors. It put in a quote from our CEO. It pulled in our mission statements. All the elements that make Peachjar great for school districts. If you don't know what that is, hit us up. We'll let you know. But that was the reaction of the person that I was showing this to. Wow. And then the next reaction is, please don't ever show that to anyone else again, because it's my job. So
That's funny.
It is true.
We don't feel threatened by AI at
No,
all.
I don't
We
either.
use it as a tool to really leverage and help us in our day-to-day work, because ultimately there are so many things that a machine cannot do that we do very well, but it does take away some of that, I know it's on the tip of my tongue and I just need a little help getting unstuck, some idea generation, things like that. It's awesome.
That's really good. I agree. And, just kind of go back to your length, the plan length. Ryan Ferran and I actually did a podcast on just communications plans. They came up with Jackie Dillard. And we got into a little bit of a disagreement because Ryan was saying that they should only be, a few pages long, small handful of pages long. And I was saying, well, I've seen some really great plans out there. I can give you some examples that are much longer. Some of them are 40 or 50 pages long. He just lost his mind saying it was just way too much, right? And there is a happy medium. So it doesn't have to be 40 or 50 pages. It doesn't have to be 3 or 4 pages. You need to tailor the plan for what's specific for your needs in your community and your audience. Like Christine said, you've actually, when you go through Poway's plan, you've probably got all of that already created somewhere. So it would be really hard to maybe create something of a greater length than you really need. So going back to that data and that analytics and really looking at your audience and what your priorities are, that's huge. You've really got to tailor it for what your district needs in your communities. So do you have any tips for someone that doesn't have a plan now, but wants to maybe start a plan, dig into this? Where do they start?
Where do you start? I think for anyone to start is first give yourself some grace. First of all, just because you don't have a comms plan doesn't mean you're not doing your job well. I just want to put that out there. We're not saying like, hey, you're lacking in this way. What I am saying is by creating a comms plan, a strategic comms plan for yourself or your department, it really is going to help you work smarter. And so I would encourage you to approach this in a way very methodically, right? Mm-hmm. So start with kind of a mini audit of your communications platforms. What am I doing on a day-to-day basis? What am I producing in a week or in a month, right? And so when you write those things down, then you put them into buckets, right? Why are we doing these things? Mm-hmm. And then those are kind of like your rough goals, objectives, and strategies, right? So if you're like, oh, I see that we do a lot of work, community engagement, town hall meetings, site tours. Oh, okay. So we've got community engagement bucket here. Yeah. But you have to be sure that you're looking at your district vision and mission, as well as any kind of board goals or LCAP for California, mm-hmm. or any of your like strategic goals for your district, so that you are serving that vision and mission with the things you're doing in your comms department. I think once you find and you do that kind of mini audit, mm-hmm. in your department, you'll be able to say like, okay, let's keep going on this trajectory because the things we're doing and the goals that we've made are serving this greater purpose. Or you'll find after doing that, hey, I don't think this is effective. I don't think this is, something we should keep doing just because it's always been done this way, right? Done, yeah. And of course, you're looking at measuring how are you accomplishing these goals and objectives? Mm-hmm. And that's the evaluation piece, because you're going to come back to it and say, how did we do? So we just did a one-day retreat, and we started with celebrations. Okay. How did we do on achieving our goals? What did we accomplish? And that's really like uplifting, because you're on the right track, and it's validating.
That's really great. That kind of thing goes a long ways to building culture and community and brand awareness and staff retention and recruitment. Wonderful. When you have your communications plan kind of bows tied on it, who signs off on that? Is that just something you and the superintendent do? Is that an executive cabinet level thing or a discussion? Does it go to the board? What happens once you feel like you've got something in place?
So this is something that I worked with my superintendent on and shared with executive cabinet. Okay. And then we did share it with the board. We did not do a public presentation on it, okay. But I do know that many districts do. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking we may go to that, because it is a lot of work and effort, and it should be shared publicly. And so that's probably the next step for us.
That's really cool. I fully agree with that, especially knowing the work that you're doing in Poway and the effort that you're putting in, and just looking at your communications plan overall. Like I said, somebody seeing that, wow, I really do think that it is something that should be shared more broadly, publicly with your community, and really validates the work that you're engaged in. So we talked through the why, we talked through the basic high level elements, we talked through kind of the process of getting it done, we talked through what happens once it's done. Any kind of final thoughts? Anything we haven't discussed that are rolling around in your head on creating strategic communications plans?
I think moving forward, as we come up on really looking at the end of the 3-year plan in 2024, one thing that I probably will do that I didn't do the first time around is engage a little bit more of our audience that we serve with the communications plan. So we've done that in some ways by surveying them, mm-hmm. on different things like our websites or, preferred methods of communications, but there's no like really comprehensive comms survey that we've been able to do, okay. nor focus groups or things like that. And mm-hmm. so I think maybe this could be a little bit of a different approach that's more audience focused now that we have a good grip on what our comms plan can do and what it's capable of.
That's really good. And then that kind of sheds a new way of looking at your communications tools and how you're leveraging them. Annette Franco at Newport Mesa always says, focus on your community's need for communication and not just your need to communicate to your community.
Yeah.
And that really shifts it that way. We check out, there will be another episode of Peachjar Extra Credit with Jennifer Jericho from Santa Clara Unified. And we talk all the way through communications audits and some of the surveys and things like that you would go through for that process. So if you're interested in also leaning into what an audit looks like and how you can use that to leverage creating a really powerful and impactful communications plan, be sure to check that episode out with Jennifer Jericho as well. Christine, I said it at the top of the video, but I got to say it again. I can't thank you enough. I know you are super busy. You are a rock star. Brittany, your team, what you guys are doing over there is really great work for students in your community and your staff. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with me again today.
Thank you, Matthew. It's always an honor.
Absolutely. Very cool. I will link to some of the things we discussed in the description. So if you're looking for any of that, just check it out below. If you like this, be sure to like, share, comment, follow for more. You can hit us up for sure. Like I know either one of us will be happy to answer your questions. I know Christine could probably geek out and talk about communications planning at length. So feel free to reach out to anyone here. We'd be happy to talk through that with you. That's all we got for now. Stay tuned for more. Thanks.
Bye.